can wake up or sleep 8 hours or 9 hours or 10 hours and I'll wake up even more tired.
I understand that each person has their individual chronotype that is adaptable to the schedule.
Sleeps 2 hours a day, outperforms any human being that I know. Welcome, my friend Barry Bridges, the sleep doctor. Thank you for coming on the show, Barry. You know, Barry, you and I have connected about a month or more, you know, through media and, you know, going on with our, you know, your profession. We kind of hit base and kind of connected in such an interesting way because as I'll introduce Gary in a way where he has been on a high level of interest and science in sleep, Barry, and how the human body performs. Barry, introduce yourself, let people know what you're about, who you are, and let us know.
Okay, Coach Pete, thanks for the introduction. And yeah, thanks for having me on your show. It's been a pleasure to jump on your show. Yeah, well, I've been in the industry, sports and wellness industry for about 15 years plus. I've got various academic background in sports science and sleep science. I've worked in corporate wellness for 10 years. I still currently do it on a full-time basis. I'm involved in esports. I've worked with golf, professional golfers. At the moment, I'm building my brand called Successful Sleeper, where we look at obviously working with professional athletes. A lot of them, majority of them are combat athletes, fighters and boxers, world champion boxers, fighters. Yeah, I'm just getting stronger every week and growing, building a new connection with sports people around the globe, and then obviously trying to build my brand globally as well.
Very, very interesting. You know, you're not connected, and what actually got to me about what you do, and you know, I kind of dug in deep into in our conversation, was the question of how people presume enough sleep, or how do if I sleep so many hours, 8 hours, it's good as far as success in my performance in the day. And it's mind-boggling what you told me, and it actually blows my mind. It's got nothing to do with the hours of sleep you get. And just going forward, continue on our conversation we had about that, because it blew my mind. I thought, you know, and it's interesting, you just, like when we spoke about it, I can wake up or sleep 8 hours or 9 hours or 10 hours, and I'll wake up even less energy. And I'm like, what happened? What happens when that happens?
Yeah, okay, let's get out the 8 hour myth. Let's just cut that out. We don't need 8 hours. Not all of us do need it. Some do, some don't. Let's take our recovery and sleep, and let's think of sleep cycles. So now you're probably like, what's a sleep cycle? I've taught you what it is, but for the audience and listeners, a sleep cycle is basically how we sleep at night. Our brain sleeps in various sleep cycles stages. One sleep cycle equals 90 minutes. When I train sleep coach clients at the corporates and obviously professional athletes, I teach them to rather think of your recovery in a sleep cycle. We call it polyphasic, shortest block periods of sleep. So when you go to a sleep lab to do a polysomnograph to see if you have any sleep apnea or sleep disorders, they will look at your brain activity within a 90-minute cycle. So our brain will go between 4 and 5 sleep cycles per night. My goal for my clients and my athletes is they need to get a certain amount of sleep cycles within that. If they don't get it in, because we can't obviously plan for what comes up in the evening, then we can obviously look at their recovery during the day. What do they do? Their scheduling. And like I always said, recovery starts the moment you wake up in the morning. The first 60 to 9 minutes is when your recovery starts for the day. Yeah, so that's basically, yeah.
That's interesting because, Barry, you know, this was my knowledge before I met you. And going further, Barry has actually joined me and my team, and we're going to walk a great road together because I truly believe in what you're telling me. And I wish I had that in my career. and my, but you live and you learn, and I pass it on to my fighters and I register, does this work, does that, and it made sense where, I think most people work in their watches. Like I tried it before, and my sleep time and REM sleep. Explain REM sleep, because that is one of the, how much REM sleep did you get? That's a deep sleep apparently, or how do you look at it?
Yeah, look, when it comes to wearables and sleep data, obviously I have a good knowledge, understanding about it. But for me, when I work with clients, I try to get them away from the data as much as possible, especially if it's a person that's seeking more better sleep quality. I don't want him to look at wearable devices. I'll look at more like sleep diary log or a log book or journal to record his sleep and movements. It's way much better because a wearable device can be quite stressful. And we've got to understand any stress to the brain is going to be disruptive for sleep at night. Our brain controls our sleep at night, and you've got to let that natural process take over. So it's no use you sitting by your bedroom space and you're looking at your wearable device saying REM sleep, back sleep, what other sleep, light sleep, and you're kind of waiting for the wearable device to kick in.
So what
that can build up. Yeah.
What are the negatives? As everyone says, phone, computer, whatever it be, TV is quite hectic, or?
Okay, yeah. So first of all, cell phones you can have the cell phone before at night. Obviously, you need to change it to a different screen, like a warmer, fiery color. Okay. The two things that a cell phone is going to cause, it's stress. So it's cognitive arousal. Not going to be physical, cognitive. So ideally, it's not the light that this causes you to sleep later. It's the arousal on the phone that causes the sleep. Because someone could be saying something bad to you about social media. It could be various other things. You're looking for a new job. You don't match the criteria. It becomes stressful. Obviously, you don't end up sleeping at night. We've got to look at the research, and the latest research shows that cell phone device and iPad cannot give us that bright blue light exposure that will obviously diminish melatonin, disrupt our melatonin. So old evidence says that cell phones inhibits our melatonin. No, that's not true, because the cell phone device and iPad can only give us a certain amount of light exposure. Remember, we're looking, bright blue light will be the one that disrupts melatonin, not off the blue light that we get from a cell phone device, iPad. It's not strong enough. But the thing is, why it disrupts sleep is because of the cognitive arousal. So
if I put night setting reading on my iPad, is that a true a truth being said reading an iPad? Does that affect me, or is it okay? Is it actual true?
It's going to depend what you're reading. What are you looking at? Is it causing stress, or anything we look at on the screen causes our brain has to respond to it. So it can be positive, it can be negative. And obviously that causes stress. If it's negative, then obviously that's going to get us psyched up and angry. And so there.
So the effect of what you're looking at, TV, reading, if it's negative or, anything to do with disrupting patterns of mood and, your how could I say, your feelings can kind of disturb your sleep, right? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, it's gonna put you off. You're gonna obviously think about the situation, what you looked at, so what has been said, and it's obviously gonna put you off, and you're gonna probably find that you'll sleep an hour or two later. And then you don't obviously get the amount of sleep that you would get on a normal basis. So what I describe to clients and athletes, try look at YouTube and all that type of stuff beforehand, maybe 2 hours before, maybe do some reading, catch up with your partner or friends. If you're watching TV, TV's fine. I fall asleep watching TV. Just make sure it's on a low volume. The lights are dim. It's not bright lights that you're watching TV, and that you're in a comfortable setting, relaxing on a couch or something. Because basically what that acts as is like a white noise effect. And a lot of clients or athletes need that white noise effect as a background. They use it on their cell phone devices as well, in order to obviously get them in a relaxed state of mind, and then they fall asleep.
Wow. And Barry, as far as what you eat or drink, like sometimes one thing I used to do, I used to drink a lot of red wine before I went to bed, and I found a negative effect on that. It disrupted my sleep. I never got into a deep zone. By the time I got up, I was actually tired waking up. Now I don't do like alcohol. Like wine is the thing I enjoy, but I'd say if I do it, I'd rather do it lunchtime or something like that. I've realized just on my own experience that was disturbing me, and I would get to work and I was dragging through the day, the entire day. And I felt that was one of the things that really, so as far as food and alcohol or any sugar, whatever, what's your knowledge on what to do at night as far as eating, drinking, and so on?
Yeah, good question there, Coach Pete. I think, first of all, I think timing is everything. So we got to look at breaking down our meals, what we eat throughout the day to the evening. So what I suggest to clients and athletes, they look at something called a chrono diet. You know, we've heard all these different phases of diets. Now, what a chrono diet is you have a big breakfast in the morning, a high protein breakfast in the morning. Your breakfast should be at least 40-50% of your calories for the day, at least. So that's why you see all these bodybuilders and men's health guys, especially physique guys that want to add more muscle. Even athletes, they really have a massive protein breakfast. You'll see them have 10 egg whites. Now, there's a reason for that, because that obviously helps with recovery at night. That's why these guys fall asleep. You know, these bodybuilders, they go to bed early. You know, they got good wake-up times, etc. Especially like high-performing athletes as well. So a big breakfast in the morning, a medium lunch at lunchtime, and a light dinner at dinner time. Now, depending on what your sleep chronotype is, if you're an evening chronotype, you're going to probably eat all your meals in the late hours of the evening. So I don't think you should be eating anything after 7:30. Obviously, it's going to differ between each individual. If they're competing or they've got exercise late in the evening, which that will obviously be changed a little bit. So meal timing is key. You know, we need to eat everything early in the day and less in the evening. That's the key. That's the key for weight loss. That's key for muscle building. That's key for recovery, physical, mental recovery.
Wow. That's something, you know, I find very interesting because, you know, as far as nutrition goes, my wife is an expert in nutrition, and she always says breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And you just echoed that back into my mind. I'm going, wow.
High protein.
Yeah.
High protein breakfast.
And and I'm going, why? You know, and she explains to me like this. She would say, breakfast is breaking the fast. You've been not eating for the whole time, or drinking or consuming, even because dehydration's as bad as, you know, not eating well. And breakfast is one of the most important meals. And when I speak to my clients, I would speak to them and say, and I could see that tired, dragging, whatever, and they come to training, I'm saying, what have you eaten today? And first thing they tell me, what I never get is the breakfast. It's always by 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, people start eating. And I'm like, bro, you cannot do that, because you've been sleeping and fasting while you've been sleeping. So your most important meal, and like you say, and it's coming from you again, and I'm not going, wow, that like hits a bell. From a sleep aspect, you like really hit the nail on the head, saying how to eat, which is very important, strong in the day or in the morning, and then, you know, lighter in the evening, you know. And as far as alcohol, what's your take on alcohol? Because most people, you know, they go out, they drink, they go for dinner, they drink. You know, there's always an attachment to food and alcohol. What's your take, and how does alcohol affect you?
Yeah, I mean, that's a sensitive topic, but I mean, look, I think everything balanced in moderation. You know, maybe try to keep the alcohol for the weekends. During the week, try to be a little bit easier on alcohol, because alcohol is going to affect your deep sleep like you've experienced with the red wine. So what alcohol will do is it'll get you to fall asleep quite quickly, but you're going to probably wake up in the middle of the evening. So then we get sleep disruption. And obviously then we don't get our quality of sleep and recovery in. It's going to differ from person to person. You know, we have to look at obviously their schedule, the lifestyle, what they can do, when they should be drinking. So it's going to be very different and individualized per person. But if you can stay away from it for the week and maybe just leave it for the weekend, that'll be a first good step going forward.
Barry, you said something to me, and we spoke about a lot of things, and you spoke about morning. You get like, I'm going to athletes now. Genetically, you're saying people are either morning driven or evening driven. And how does that work in the sporting world, where most athletes perform their events in the evening? Oh, well, in the fight game, it's definitely that way. You always got the evening fights, and then you got the athlete that's a morning person won't outdo the guy that is actually evening. And you said 70% of people are evening type people, right? Where they perform better in the evening. So I know it's a whole science and there's a whole lot of tricks of the trade. But briefly, inform us, because, as far as athletes, like myself and my world champion, Kevin Arena, we're traveling and we're going to be on the road for the next 4 weeks. And there's a lot of travel, a lot of different regions that we'll be in. This COVID has made everything almost impossible as far as performance. And that's where, the penny dropped when I spoke to you about it. And I said, no, man, this is going to be difficult on traveling and performing. So the question I'm asking is, what makes converting that morning person into a performing evening person? And how do you adjust the athlete to perform that day that's given time?
Yeah, great question, Coach Pete. I'm not going to give two away, because there's a secret in that formula that leads up to success, especially winning title bouts. Look, we've got to understand that each person has an individual chronotype that is adaptable to any schedule. So we know that we can be flexible with that and change it to any given situation on the day. On my part would be basically, especially with traveling, a lot of the morning chronotype fighters would struggle with jet lag and traveling because of the different time zones. They're going from west to east and the multiple time zones, where your morning chronotype fighters, they would be quite easy on that. They don't mind jet lag and shift work and stuff like that. I mean, I take fighters as shift workers. They like shift workers. So that's how I classify them, just like esport gamers, shift workers. They compete morning, they might train in the morning, but they compete in the evening. So they're always active, they're always doing some sort of activity, whether it's during the day or evening. Leading up to the fight, well, obviously there'll have to be some sunlight exposure, which will be quite tricky. And yeah, I don't want to go too much into that, because there are certain ways that I bring that into the equation, especially for the warm-up for the fighters leading up to an evening fight. If they are morning chronotype, that is. If they're evening chronotype or they set in stone, they'll be able to peak at that time in the evening. Some of our world champion boxers, they fight at like sometimes 2-3 o'clock in the morning overseas. They are morning chronotype fighters, and they've done well. They've won championship belts. Maureen Shea is one of them. But I'm coming into the equation and bringing something different. So now you'll be able to see a different type of fighter when she competes. So.
For instance, you saw two fighters in their careers. You're mentioning to me, I'm not sure who they were. It was UFC fighters who won, and then he had a rematch and he performed totally, and it was two different times for those fights. Explain.
So let me get into that.
That was a good example.
So Yoel Masvidal versus Usman for a title belt, and they fought in Abu Dhabi in the morning. That was the first match. And Usman, Yoel had to lose 20 pounds going into the fights. He had to travel multiple time zones. And, you know, he went the full 5 rounds with Usman. They fought about 7:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, Abu Dhabi time. Okay? That's when they actually fought, which they don't normally do in mixed martial arts UFC. They will normally fight evening, maybe later than boxers, or normally similar times. Then in his second fight, he had a rematch with Usman in the evening in Miami, Florida, which is his home city.
Right.
And I'm going to presume now, I haven't done any tests with UA, if he was a morning chronotype fighting that second match in the evening with Usman will have a definitely performance advantage over him going into that fight. And you could probably see in the fight that Masvidal was very slow in the movements. And one of the key performance metrics when I work with skill coaches and coaches is to always look at your feet movement of your athletes, especially fighters, especially boxers. If their feet movement is slow, if you're telling them to do certain things and they're very slow in receiving that, and they're like unsure and they have to ask you have to repeat all the time, obviously on the coaching, 9 times out of 10, they probably didn't get the proper recovery sleep the night before. So those are the key things you need to look at. I always look at fighters, their feet movement. Their feet movement is quick, then you know their recovery is pretty consistent. So that, and you see that in obviously your coaching.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, feet movement's a big thing in boxing.
Massive.
You know, that's
massive.
Yeah. So,
you know, that being said, Barry, the one thing I always tap on, you know, the world's population, you've got about 5 highly performance athletes in the world. 95% of people are obviously in the workplaces and not high performance people, but yet alone, you know, as a businessman or person that owns a business in the world, you want your staff and your employees to be as good or active at work. And most people, they drag every day through work. So just a quick one on that side of things, on high performance as far as alertness in the workplace. Is it any much different to what athletes do, or is it the same type of concept as, like, I'm a Microsoft owner, or I'm Elon Musk, but I got to keep my scientists and my staff at the highest level to perform because I've got $1 billion rocket that's going to launch. But, you know, what I'm trying to get at is people obviously don't know this and don't have the knowledge of what you do. And this is what I find interesting. Does this, well, I know it does, but does it actually get people into a higher level at work and alertness and energy that is required every day?
Yeah, look, it's going to be different on, like, if we compare office workers, I'm just going to say office workers or businessmen compared to athletes, they've got different schedules. You know, they've got different responsibilities. Some have kids, some don't have kids, some have multiple streams of income or businesses. Where you look at an office worker, they're more cognitive output type of athlete, you would say, because they work behind the desk on a PC. And if you look at an athlete like a fighter, well, they've got more of a physical output. So both of those outputs have got different types of stresses that the brain has to relate to on a given day. So how they plan for that, how they reshuffle their schedule will determine the outcome of their recovery. So that's obviously where I come in to fix that, reshape that, understand their chronotype, understand their schedule. When do they peak and when do they not peak? When do they need to take a break of technology, lay off something, like have some mental recovery during the day? That's kind of where my kind of gift comes in, to make sure that if they're performing, everybody else will perform.
Why I'm asking this question, I'm getting to this point, is how does a guy like Elon Musk, who's running a global icon, a business beyond, got so many things happening in his life, sleeps 2 hours a day, outperforms any human being that I know, and that's what I'm saying. Yeah, we got athletes, yeah, we got the Elon Musk in business. So we got let's take it this way, the athletes. I'll take it, Elon Musk and I'll take Mike Tyson in his prime. Both people are high performers in the industry. The one uses 2 hours sleep and he can outperform his brain to another level. Yeah, as a man physically, as well as mentally, as an athlete like Mike Tyson, performing, but he needs that rest and all that thing. But why does Elon Musk survive on 2 hours sleep and can outperform his brain capacity to such a high level?
Yeah, good question. I mean, you know, he might be saying that, but you don't know really if he is he bragging about it? Or is it really fact?
I'm sure a man of his level, you know, with everything going on, you know, and trillions and billions of money that he could lose in one moment, he's obviously going to be actively, I mean, he doesn't have much time in a day. We all have 24 hours, but he doesn't have much time to run such a level of, you know, with all the stress of, you know, one rocket can turn everything into zero in his life, you know, or whatever he's doing. But I'm just using an example. But I'm saying, can you survive and perform at that high level with 2 hours, 3 hours sleep for a long time?
Hell no. So the answer is hell no. And I think that'll eventually catch up to him eventually. Whether it's going to cause him to get I don't know, something more. You can't live on that. That's your gas tank. Your gas tank has a lifespan. You know, these guys that speak about 3-4 hours of sleep, the top executive business people that are successful. We don't know if that is really true, as we really recorded data from, if they do that. Are they just bragging about it? Maybe they're carrying some life disease we don't even know. Are they healthy individuals? We don't know this. Yes, they probably have the best people working with them. Maybe they don't. But their health will soon catch up to them. No doubt about it. Absolutely no doubt about it.
Okay. That's interesting because, and that's something I wanted to cover with you. Barry, this is such a great conversation I've had with you. And I really want to leave because there's more to come. And I need to tap in with Barry. So I just wanted to give Barry, like, you know, welcome to the team. I'm going to be happy to work with you in the future with my champions. And you know what, Barry, maybe you can give some of the people information about who you are, how to get hold of you. And hey, man, thank you so much. Give us some info.
Yeah, so Instagram, you can check me out on Instagram, Successful Sleeper, pretty easy. And then you can go on my webpage, www.successfulsleeper.com. And then you can actually click on and go to the success stories. And it actually takes you through a whole story of how I work with these elite fighters and how did they start with me, how did they end. So it takes you kind of through this whole journey, the process, what do they do, the assessments, the coaching process.
And you working with elites, Barry.
Yeah,
as we know, you working with the fighters now. You chose that field because you find that very interesting as far as the fight game goes, and you love the fight game. You got somebody, one of the big fighters coming up now.
Yeah, I've got Sullivan Barrera. Sullivan's probably top 10 light heavyweight in the world. He's a WBC champion, fights out of Miami, Florida. I work with the strength coach, Phil DeRue. He's a well-known strength coach. He trains all the best combat athletes in UFC. He's fighting Gilberto Ramirez, which is a number 3 light heavyweight. But Sullivan likes to be in the undercard. He likes to be the underdog. You know, that's his game. He was that, I think, when he fought, I think it was Joe Smith, American, and broke his jaw, and he won the WC championship. So there we go. He was the underdog. So Sullivan, I've been working with him a long time. He's fit, he's ready, he's sleep fit ready. We got him everything. We've got the game plan going with his coach, Derek. I work with his coach, Derek, as well. I don't just work with the fighters. I work with the skills coaches as well, like yourself. And obviously I train other professional athletes in different sports disciplines. However, obviously combat is majority of my athletes at the moment. I've got Maureen Shea, world champion, 2 times world champion pro. I've worked with all the top guys here in South Africa, Don Madge, Richie Kwan. I've done work with them. Boyd Allen, I've done work with. Tien Fick, SA heavyweight champion. Who else can I've worked with? President of Neuros Force One that trains all the UFC fighters. Karim, he's the president and founder of the facility. So yeah, I've managed to attract a global audience, and I'm basically just trying to focus on building my brand that side. And I've got a few contacts and few projects up in the works at the moment.
Barry, that's brilliant. Thank you so much for being on the show. And I just say to people, guys, all the fans, all the people watching, just give us some questions if you want anything you kind of querying you want to ask Barry, or get directly in contact with him. But on my YouTube, give us some questions so we can bring on to the next show. And Barry, great having you on the show, brother. And we're looking forward to having you again. All right. Give us a thumbs up.
Thank you so much. And hope the audience enjoys the conversation. And I look forward to hearing from you, audience, further, and we'll reconnect.
Awesome. Thanks, brother. Appreciate it. Great information.